Bjorn Larsson Lindman is an economist, psychologist, and counselor to leaders for 45 years. He resides in Stockholm, Sweden, and sees the world as his working field. Women's Empowerment is his third book and the first in English.
The reason why I wrote it, and I started 16 years ago, that is that I saw good leadership in women all over the place where I worked, and that's not only Sweden. And I saw also the destructive elements in men's leadership. And those destructive elements, they will sooner or later end up in that destroyed relations, but also destroyed environment.
Yeah.
And we have already seen it. I think the base for what's happening in the nature, for instance, and the change in climates and so, is basically that men running for power can't stop themselves.
Yeah.
They're gonna go even further to just make more money, and above all, inside that making money is the aim to get more power. They want to be on top. And in the book it's called the RX syndrome. And the RX syndrome is a trying to describe the sickness of this aim for power, the struggle for power. And that's described in the book.
You actually say there's an addiction to power. It's a pathology that is at the root of this environmental catastrophe.
After a while, I think almost all men it could develop an addiction, very, very strong addiction to power. It's like, using drugs. After a while, you get so addicted to it, you do anything to reach it, and then after a while, stay in it. And then you will, to beat the others, you try to accumulate more and more.
Men can step down so that the feminine principle within men and women can rise, however focused on the gender of women, so that men have to kind of psychologically challenge and question this addiction to power.
I think that, knowing men, I try to describe in the book how I know men, in my upbringing and the environment where I grew up, and all the men I've been working with. Some of them are very totalitarian in their attitudes. And I think that male systems would block out women from really reaching power in a deeper sense. So my idea is that men have to step down. And you should do that by politics. And I see it in Sweden now. There are more and more women coming into leadership in politics. And that has to follow also that the men who runs politics behind the screen, they should also be reached here. And I don't think that's happened yet. Women have to know much more about the power structures than they know today, and realize that these structures, they are so deeply ingrained in both men and women. Mm-hmm. So when I present the idea of a really, strong or deep change of the structures we live in, the male structures, patriarchy we call it also, that is not done just by thinking it would be good to do the change and hope the men come in and help with it. No, it doesn't work like that. There will always be men who cling to their power, and they won't let the women in. No way. They will just stop it in one way or another to try. They'll say, yes, we're with you and we should do this and that. But when it comes to the deeper changes, men have to move out. I would say men have to leave the scene for a while. I would suggest 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's enough for women to realize what changes women could really initiate.
And Bjorn, how do you think that how can we begin to tackle this immense giant system.
You mean patriarchy?
Yeah.
Well, I think that if women move up a little bit more on the scene, as they do in many places, you see it in developing countries very much. You can see it in United States. You can't see it so much in China, and you cannot see it in the Middle East as good. Even though they try, but it's not that obvious, and they fought furiously. And I think most countries in the world, they will fight it, and they will not let women in. And as long as this happens, they will also destroy nature, destroy our environment.
For the patriarchal values that want to see women as the preservers of the home and responsible for the domestic leadership, while the male principles are responsible for the external leadership and environmental politics. What incentives can we give men? And what motivation, deeper motivation, can we help the entrenched power addicts to step down? What social incentives can we create?
Oh, that's good. That's very interesting. I think that one of the key issues, women have to realize that men won't step down freely. Men into power. The other ones, they will say, yes, very good, and and women have a traditional role of taking care of the family, as you say. But when it comes to the real thing, women have to learn much more about how patriarchy works.
Yeah.
And if you see it like a brick building like that, you have to ease out the first bricks. Then when you have the first bricks are out, it's much easier. And women haven't reached that position yet. No.
So by reading this book, you really detailedly explain how patriarchy works, the pathology of the dysfunctional aspects of patriarchy, and then how the feminine principle and how femininity can begin to balance the equation. And maybe it'd be an amazing role reversal. We actually see so many more men being more domestic, taking more care of the children, being more involved in family life, and we see women becoming increasingly more of the provider role. So the masculine principle is flipping into the feminine gender, the female gender, and the reverse. So these are things that could also help encourage, because maybe if men spent more time with the family and with the children, they would have less imperial, warlike nature.
Yeah, I think doesn't the testosterone reduce when the men are taking care of children and in family situations? I think if they felt comfortable in that role, that they didn't need to be this strong defender and conqueror, that they might be even happier. It might release and give them more health.
Yeah.
More, their lives might last longer.
I would like to comment that, because I think that we see it in a process of 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We will have these changes. It's coming, you can see that. And it's very, very nice to look at. But how much time do we have? I think it's imminent that we do something. We have to do it really fast now. We have these fires in Australia, and we could see how people change their mind, especially the political leaders.
They haven't. They still are denying that it's due to climate.
No, I don't think the what's his name now? I don't remember his name. But the political leadership in Australia, that he would now turn the political leadership in Australia into more consciousness about it.
Well, I hope so, because I just read they weren't.
You see,
yeah,
they bounce back.
Yeah.
What would you say what are the reasons we need to take care of the environment? Why shouldn't business be a parasite? Why shouldn't economics be a parasite upon ecology.
Maybe. Oh, is it you? You can,
No. You.
no, because I think we need all species, as many as possible. I think our habitat is built from diversity,
Yes.
and without diversity, we have to create abnormal environments.
Yeah,
we already do that, but we're approaching 9 billion people on the earth, and yeah.
That alone is so taxing on the animal kingdom and the vegetable.
And the state of the oceans, there are alarm reports all the time.
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, it could run very quick if some parts of the environment breaks down. And
Yeah, the keystone species that are fundamental on the food chain level, if they're threatened. In my book, Planetary Personhood, that I'm writing, I see biodiversity as the immune system of the planet. And just now, as you've been saying that, I've been thinking, well, actually, humanity is kind of like an autoimmune disease.
yeah,
We are
Our mind is
the mental condition of the philosophies and the ideologies that are governing our economic activity has become an autoimmune disease, in the sense that we are cells attacking itself.
yeah.
If the earth is our body, and our economic activities are threatening the global body, then we have become a disease. And in a sense, the selfishness and the greed and all the testosterone that is not allowing us to make this progress in space for the feminine principle and women's empowerment is a cancer. It is like the radical selfish cells that don't care about the global body. And so how do we heal this?
women have to come into the
Yeah.
picture.
But you were talking about how the candidates, there has to be an exam. There's exams for pilots,
yes, the leadership.
for all kinds
The
of
leadership issue.
people
Yeah.
with responsibility. But how is it that there isn't a test, an examination, and a constant examination on the leaders, so that they do not get corrupt? Because so many leaders do enter with good intentions, and then slowly they get corrupt because of the addictive power of anything. No, but it's okay to be addicted to creating art or to making a business work, but when you have something so grand as a government that has so much effect on everyone.
Yeah, I think that in the book here, I come with a few suggestions what you can do. One would be that all leaders have to have a license. They have to be tested on the top levels.
Yeah.
They can't have a leadership role without being confirmed good leaders, and that would make a huge difference. It wouldn't work on in all places at once, but you could start with it somewhere. It always starts like that, but it should be implemented very, very soon to make it work.
Yes.
So good leadership is actually crucial in this. It has to be, there could be many ways. I mean, we test leaders. I've been working with leaders for 45, 50 years. And I have seen many programs to test leaders for their ability to make money. But now they could also make good things for the total scene, for the wholeness.
A leadership qualification should be systemic and lateral thinking. We can no longer think in the bubbles of nationalism because as we see, global immigration, every nation is slowly being introduced into every nation by the cultural integrations that are happening. And so what is a national boundary when you have the cultures of the world inside of each national boundary? Slowly national boundaries ideologically are just beginning to fade, and they're really, these boundaries are just like economic and political bubbles that are in some way interfering in the capacity to create this almost a universal principle of ethical leadership.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so important. But now we're talking, I would like to hear from you, Mariana.
Yeah.
What do you think that women could, what if you could say no, like women have told me that when I first placed this book on the internet, I got so many responses that I was crazy. You can't give money, no, you can't give power to women. They don't understand power and money.
They're too emotional.
Yeah,
they have too many. Yeah. It was, well, I think, first of all, a person desiring to be a leader should have, it is a vocation. It should be a vocation to help. I think women who give birth and raise children have this innate, it's biological, a drive in them to protect the environment, to protect them from any harm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is the next step. We have to protect the world, the place that our children are going in. We have to think like that. I cannot imagine anybody not doing this in being in a leadership position. So I think what your question was to me, what is it?
What could the women contribute? What would be women's contribution?
Well, if, for instance, if I had a certain responsibility, I would have a panel of women, a circular, many women, and we discuss things. And there's a circle, but then there's more advisors of people who know exactly about, who have studied conditions, because we don't know. We need to have many people to make important decisions ecologically and ecosystems. There's so many different aspects that we cannot, one person, make a decision. We have to discuss it to make the correct decisions. And I think, I don't know, but the pyramidal structures that male have is, I think, very dangerous, because not only is it dangerous for this man to be corrupt and get intoxicated by his power, I think it's important to have many, distributed among many. And I know women like to argue against each other, but if we have a goal, if the goal is to protect the world, the future, we will collaborate. We will work day and night. Like that panel of women that you had in one of the examples in your book, you say how there were 3 groups. 2 had a man or many men. One was with many men, one was women and men, and then was one only women. And the one with only women really took the project seriously and worked very hard to give the best results, whereas the men didn't take it seriously, and the one that had the men and the women, the women gave in to the men.
Now they started negotiating about how power should be divided, but nobody came up with any solution.
Yeah.
The only group that came with solutions was the women.
Yeah.
The men went to play billiard, I think it was.
See, they don't take it serious. You see all the men in other countries in the cafes and women working.
Yeah.
Here in the West, the men really work.
Yeah.
They work themselves to death.
I feel one of the beautiful aspects of femininity is this cooperative aspect, as opposed to the competitive aspect. Of course, in the most primitive biological settings, the competitive aspect to rise to the top in the alpha male or the alpha female is there, and it needs to be acknowledged and recognized and harnessed in a way that is not destructive. However, I think we recognize that violence is an infrastructure of because there's always one seeking to be at the top. There's going to be competition and violence to attain the top position. So if we change the infrastructure of power, then we can address violence at its root energetic level.
Yeah, you disarm the man.
Yeah.
And the violence in men. We men have to really try to figure out how to stop other men from using power to solve problems. Today it's all right. All the American movies you look at, many of them have this violence in them. They solve problems with violence. And that's how the United States work. They go to Iran, Iraq, and so violence, instead of sitting down and negotiate.
Yeah.
And try to figure out.
That is because of the arms they make money on, because otherwise the world does not want wars. We want to live a nice life.
Oh, I think people into power doesn't disregard war and violence. No, that's the way of making money in power. So we shouldn't say that. Most people would like to live in peace. That's my absolute conviction.
Yeah, our life is good, and the standard of living is rising.
But I would like to go back to this issue with women and the animosity between women.
Oh, yeah.
Because publishing the book, I realized that so many women are angry at other women and don't believe in other women. And those dived up here, the ones that said it, yeah, they also came up and said very good and so on. But I was scared by the words the women. I've never read text like that. There is anger from women against women, not against men so much, I believe. There is, but in this case it scared me. Why are women so angry at other women?
Well, I think this is just not a majority, but I think, this society is a very harmed society. The families have, this was published in the United States, and the family has really suffered. We have
but why angry at other women in general?
Maybe they're angry at their mothers.
Yeah, we can have many explanations.
Maybe
but women have to figure out.
Yeah, we have to really work on ourselves.
Leap Forward had answers. When I was working with Leap Forward, a beautiful organization, we would start meetings with how much are we in our divine masculine, how much are we in our divine feminine, and how much are we in our immature masculine, and how much are we in our immature feminine. And so we would kind of say, well, today I'm feeling, like 60% divine masculine and 30% immature masculine with a 10% immature feminine. You'd kind of try to assess how mature and immature you're feeling based on how the day is evolving. And I think the actual problem of why both men and women are angry at each other, and especially in the situation of women being angry at women, is because society has not created a system of rites of passage and initiation into maturity. We are economically coddled to remain immature because society doesn't really demand maturity of us, and in the ways that would actually produce world peace and a healthy planet.
That's right.
So we have to see the immature feminine we could say that it has to do with the shadow emotions of jealousy, shame, guilt, and that this can be for both men and women. But I think vanity, the looks, superficiality, competition. This is the result of a hurt child.
Yeah, a woman that's not realized, that has not dedicated time and effort to realize herself in whatever talent it is an angry person, men or women. I think we have to really really find what we love to do and do that, because that in itself is so healthy. It makes us peaceful. It makes us, puts us in a good mood. It makes us happy, have a happy life. So I think this is the most important thing we can do as people. I think we're born to realize ourselves in a way that's constructive for everybody. We participate in society, valued by society. Whatever we do, we must find that.
And I just wanted to add that beauty, the corruption of beauty, and the hijacking of beauty by commercialism, advertising, and then the competition and the identification with beauty, and then the resent of not feeling beautiful or comparing oneself based on the physical aspects of beauty that fade over time, and then the inner crisis that occurs when we're starting to lose that sense of importance and power, sense of power, because we've identified with the shell.
Exactly.
So,
and that's the media, and Bjorn covers that in his book, because the media promotes this standard of beauty, which is, well, if you look in art, nobody is not beautiful. The body is not beautiful.
You mean it's not ugly?
The body is not ugly, but I'm saying the body is not beautiful if it's fat, because in drawing you love a volume.
Yeah.
You love to draw, and there's no, and then it's not just the beauty that is physical, it's the way how a person looks and smiles, and it's something about their mannerism that it is beautiful, and they don't have to be typically beautiful.
Yeah. I agree with you, although I think that this tendency to violence, if you look at the leaders, the top leaders in 3 of the biggest countries in the world now, four, they're all male, aggressive leadership.
Yeah, and if you look at their background, I wonder what kind of childhood they had. You know already what Trump's father was like.
Oh, and grandfather.
Yeah.
You know that very well.
it's the ignorance of the alpha male who relies on brute force to attain control and therefore tyranny.
Nobody wants to be victimized by a tyrant.
I
No.
think so.
I think we have to shake off these oppressors. So
Yes.
and rethink about leadership.
So then what we have to be very careful of is how we treat the children.
Yes.
No, because I heard it's Hold On to Your Kids is a book where now children in daycare centers, if there are not enough adults, they will bond with other children and disregard the adults and the values and the morals and all the things adults transmit to the children. And what's happening in these societies that are more advanced, not in Sweden, because I think Sweden has so many adults in childcare. Per child, I think it's like 4 children per adult. And that is enough influence of adult to save it. But now, we are running into a crisis of again, the families not being what they used to be. And I know you say that nuclear family doesn't really work, but it has to have an extended family situation that works for the child so that they grow healthy, to be healthy people and wanting to give and contribute to society and are not falling through the cracks.
I feel children will be healthy when we are healthy because we have to lead through example.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
But now we have to work at 2 jobs and the parents are not there.
I think that most parents in the Western Hemisphere is quite good with their parents, even though it could be better. But I see the abuse of children everywhere in the world where I've traveled. You can see it. But you can also see a new generation of young men and women that form a family and have children. How the men suddenly do the same thing as the Western young men are starting to do. They're taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
being part of that.
And being soft with them. Not condoning, no, but just loving and trying to guide them in a way that's healthy.
But you know, that doesn't change the top section of a society where the leaders are, the people that are, you know,
That
toxicated by their wish for more power. Because it's an innate structure in human or male psychology. The climbing, the wish to climb to the top.
Yeah.
It's the nature of plants, it's the nature of us.
Yeah.
But whether it is to power or to wisdom, to oppression or to true wisdom, the real power.
It has
And
to
this
do
is
with the values.
The values. And the real power is really when you are not afraid of dying, when you're not afraid, you're fulfilled as a human being. And that is the real power.
Yes, to create a safe and sacred professional and domestic infrastructure for people to ascend to their greatest potential and self-realization while remaining ethical, caring, decent, loving, healthy human beings.
Happy.
Happy. And that will produce happiness.
Yeah. And it exists. It can exist.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have the courage to make the right choices. You can't be fearful. I love this saying that the universe loves leaps of faith into an unknown and not based on fear. That fear will only bring, won't take you anywhere beautiful.
Oh, I have a little bit more biological view of fear as a very important
Oh, well, yes.
element in our psyche, that we have to check for dangers all the time.
Yeah, but
So,
I mean,
Fear the consequences of unethical behavior.
Okay, ska vi stanna här?
Yeah.
Shall we stop here?
Yeah.
Thank you very
Let's
much.
see what
Thank you.
happens.
So the book is called Women's Empowerment, A Man's Perspective by Bjorn Larsson Lindman. And yes, it's time.
In Amazon. Where can people get the book?
Everywhere where they look for it.
Yes.
It's
So
it's on Amazon.
Oh
yes.
yeah, but you have women's empowerment. What is can you say your website?
Oh, www.empoweringwomen.world.
Okay.
Empoweringwomen.world. But you can also just put up my name or the title of the book, which is Women's Empowerment, A Man's Perspective. Thank
Yes.
you.
thank
it's
you.
a wonderful book.
We can
Very
do it.
helpful.
We can do it.